Hi guys. So in this video, we are going to be doing chapter 9, which is the theory of production and cost. Right, yeah. So what we are basically going to be looking at here is the relationship between inputs as well as outputs. Right. Let me just okay, you know that for a firm, for an existing firm, each firm has what we call an input, which is used in the production process, right? In the production process to produce what? To produce the final product, which is an output, right? And in order to have that final product, which is an output, there are costs, right? There are costs that the firm has to incur, right? In order to have that final product, which is an output, right? Yeah. So that was just to open your guys' mind and into to what exactly we are going to be dealing with in this chapter. We're looking at the firm and then looking at the relationship between the inputs and the outputs. And we know that for us to have the output, the input has to undergo a process, which is the production process, right? The input has to go that process, which is a production process. And within that process, there are costs that the firm has to incur, right, to produce that final product, which is what? Which is your output. Okay, let me just explain. So that is what we're going to be looking at in this chapter. So the learning outcomes for this chapter, you have to be able to define a firm, have to be able to define total product, average product, and marginal product, have to be able to distinguish between short run and long run. You have to be able to analyze the relationship between average product and marginal product. Have to be able to analyze the relationship between total product and marginal product. Have to be able to define what is increasing marginal return and decreasing marginal return, the law of diminishing marginal return, and increasing return to scale, constant return to scale, and decreasing returns to scale. Let's get into it. So the theory of a firm or production. It says here the theory explains the relationship between the factors of production and the output of goods and services. Right. So the theory of a firm, it basically explains the relationship between simple terms in J. It explains the relationship between the inputs and outputs. That's the theory of a firm. It explains the relationship between the inputs and the outputs. They used here factors of production, obviously because your factors of production, they are what? They are an input in the production process, right? Because we need them in order to have the final product, which is what? Which is an output. So the theory of a firm, it basically just explains the relationship between the factor of production, which is your input, as well as the output which is being produced. This definition, it can also be, the theory of a firm can also be represented by what? The production function, right? By the production function. So you'll see this when we move on to the next slide. I will explain it further. But for this part, just know that the theory of a firm, it explains the relationship between inputs and outputs, your inputs being your factors of production. Remember, your factors of production are your land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Yeah, those factors of production. So we're looking at the relationship between them and the output which is being produced. Understand? And then the definition of a production, they're saying here it is the total amount of commodity produced by turning factors of production into outputs. Obviously, you know that the production, right? The production for me, I explain it as I usually say that the production is a process of converting the raw material, right? It's the process of converting the raw material or of converting factors of production, or rather the input into what? Into a final product, which is what? Which is an output. Because during the production function, you gather all the inputs that you have and that you need in order to produce the final product. You use it in the production process, you convert it, right? In order to have what? In order to produce the final product, which is an output. So here they're saying that it is the total amount of commodity. So total amount of commodity, these are items that have already been produced, right? So these are the total amount of commodities produced by, so we're producing these commodities by doing what? By turning our factors of production into output, right? So you can just start from here to say that it's the process of turning our factors of production into outputs. Yeah, because total amount of commodity is basically the output that has been produced. So the production process, it's basically the sorry, not the production process, but production. It's basically taking or turning your factors of production into what? Into outputs. And then what is your input? So the input is a resource that a firm uses in its production processes for the purpose of creating a good or service. So your input, it is what you put in the production process in order to get what? To get the final product, which is what? Which is your output. So what you put in here, the resources that you use in your production process in order to get what? To get the final product, which is your output. That is called the input. So these resources that you use, okay, let me just explain it again. The resources that you use, right, in the production process, they are called what? The inputs. Because you use those input, those resources, those factors of production, right? You take them here to the, and then you use them within your production process. I mean, you convert it into what? Into a final product, which is your output. So your input is the resources that you use in your production process to do what? To produce the final product, which is your output. And the production, it's basically, it's a process of converting now what's your inputs, which is what? Which is your factors of production, which is your raw material, into what? Into the final product, which is the outputs. I hope you guys got the slide. So a production function. Sorry. Okay, the production function. So the production function can be expressed in a form of a table, a schedule, an algebraic equation, or a graph. So a production function, it shows how much output can be produced with a given amount of capital and labor. So we can just replace this by saying that with a given amount of inputs. So the production function, it shows how much output can be produced with a given amount of what? Of inputs. Remember from the previous slide, I said that the theory of a firm, it explains the relationship between inputs and outputs, right? Which also a production function also explains the same relationship. It explains the relationship between inputs and outputs, right? But production function, this function should tell you that it is now represented mathematically, right? The theory of a firm is now being represented what? Mathematically by using quantity of output produced as a function of labor and capital. Because for this chapter, we know that we have like 4 types of factors of production. Okay, there are now 5 because they've added technology, I think. But in this chapter, we are just going to be looking at the 2 types of the factors of production, which is what? Which is land and capital. We keep all the other factors constant. We're using the ceteris paribus rule, which means that we're keeping everything constant and we just focus on what we want to analyze only, right? We want to analyze the production function, looking at said output that can be produced with the what? With the given amount of capital and labor. So you with the given amount of inputs, but with what type of inputs, what type of factors of production? Just your capital and labor. You guys get that? So the production function is still analyzes the relationship between outputs and inputs, but now we're just focusing only on capital and labor. And the function here, production function, this function should tell you that this relationship is then now expressed mathematically. So it can be shown in a form of a table where you would have your quantity, total fixed cost, total variable cost. You guys have seen those tables, right? And then it can also be shown it can be also expressed in a form of an algebraic equation where you have your quantity of output or quantity produced as a function of labor and capital. or in a form of a graph. You guys also have seen graphs where you'd have your marginal cost increasing, total, let me just, these graphs where you would have your marginal cost, sorry, this is your marginal product, your marginal cost, your total product, and so on. It can also be represented in a form of these graphs, the production function. And it's just showing what? It's basically showing the relationship between inputs and outputs. And here they say that how much output can be produced given the amount of capital and labor. And then yeah, they basically start explaining the same thing here, but the production function depends on the state of technology. Technology refers to the specific kinds of knowledge that can be used in the production process. So meaning that now, the production function, it can also depend on the state of the technology, which is the knowledge that can be used in the production process. So they give an example to say that a new technique can enable a firm to combine inputs differently and obtain a higher level of output with the same number of inputs. So if a firm has maybe like workers who are creative thinkers, those workers can always come up with ideas that can help to stimulate production, right? That is what they basically mean here. And then also this is explaining what I said to say that the production function indicates the amount of products or services which producers can produce. So the output which can be produced with a certain combination of production factors, which is an input, given the current technology. So basically, in short here, the production function, it indicates the amount of product that can be produced given the certain amount of inputs. Yeah. The production function, it shows the relationship between inputs and outputs and how much output can be produced given the certain amount of inputs. And then they also relates this with what? With the technology. And then what is a firm? So a firm is an institution that hires productive resources and organizes the factors of production to produce and sell goods and services. Right. So you know that okay, maybe you don't know, but a firm, it is an institution, right, that hires, right? It is an institution, but what does this institution do? It hires productive resources and organizes the factors of production. What are your productive resources? Your productive resources can be your technology, can be your the knowledge that your laborers have. It can be the what's this infrastructure and so on, right? So a firm will do what? Will hire those productive resources and organizes the factors of production. You know the factors of production, we've been speaking about them, which is your land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So they would also organize those factors of production. So why will this institution do that, which is a firm? Because we say that a firm is an institution that hires productive resources and organizes the factors of production. Why would they do that? Right. They will do that in order to do what? In order to produce goods and services and then sell those goods and services. So that is basically yeah, what is a firm? You say this, it's an institution that does what? It hires productive resources and it organizes the factors of production. So why would this institution hire the productive resources? Why would this institution organize the factors of production? Because those are the inputs, remember, because those are the inputs. And they want to use these inputs in their production processes. For what reason? In order to produce the goods and services. And then why will they want to produce those goods and services? In order to sell those goods and services, right? So me and you, the consumers, we then now what? Purchase those goods and services that have been produced by this institution. Yeah, by this institution. So institution, it hires productive resources and organizes affairs of production to produce and sell goods and services. And the goal of this institution or the goal of the firm in doing all of this, hiring and organizing the affairs of production, producing and selling this final product, their main aim is to what? Is to maximize profit. The main goal of a firm is to maximize profit. Is not to get profit, but it's to maximize profit, getting the highest profits. So if a firm is not being profitable or the firm is not making a profit, then the firm will not continue. They will shut down. Because why would you, like, even if you were to start your own business like today, the main aim is because you want to make a profit. So if you're not making a profit, then you might as well just shut down your business and maybe try something else. Understand? And then in a firm, we have our fixed and we also have our variable inputs, or we can say we have our fixed or our variable cost, right? So now we are going to differentiate between the fixed input or fixed cost and variable input or variable cost. So what are fixed inputs or fixed cost? You can basically say fixed input or fixed cost. It basically means the same thing. So it's those quantities of inputs that do not change regardless of the level of output produced. So your fixed inputs, they are those inputs that will not change regardless of the level of output that is being produced. They will not change. You see, they're fixed. If something is fixed, it doesn't change, right? So yeah, the fixed inputs, those are the excuse me, those are the fixed, those are the quantities of input that will never change regardless of the level of output that is being produced. Okay, now let me give an example. So let's say there's a baker, right? This person is a baker and she gets maybe a shop. She rents a shop in order to start her production. Right. Okay, she rents this shop and then the contract agreement says it's okay, every month you're going to pay 800 Rand for using this shop, right? Then she agrees, okay, I'm gonna pay 800 Rand every month. So when this baker produces 800 units, for instance, today, and or maybe this month, let's just say in the month of May, this baker produces 800 units. At the end of the month, when she pays her rent, at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, she'll pay 800 Rand that they agreed upon, right? Also, the following month, the baker makes 3,000 units of cakes. They say the baker is baking cakes. For this shop, she would also pay 800 Rand and so on. So the fixed inputs, they will never change regardless of the level of output that has been produced, meaning that yeah, this example I gave actually is just fine because to say that the person will pay that amount regardless of the level of output that has been produced. Whether the baker now decide to today produces 8,000 units, at the end of the month, she will pay 800 Rand that they agreed on. The following month, even if her production now decreases, she will still pay 800 Rand for using the shop, right? That is your fixed inputs. So your fixed input, they never change. And then your variable input, I hope this one was clear. And then the variable inputs now, those are the quantities of inputs that vary with the level of output that is being produced, meaning that they change with the level of output that is being produced. So if your production increase, your variable inputs also, they are likely to increase, right? They vary, those variable inputs. For example, let me just take the example of the baker again. So here's a baker. The baker is doing what? Is baking cakes and selling them, right? So in order to produce this cake, he will need a stove, right? He will need electricity, he will need water, right? Those things. So if now this month the baker produced maybe was able to make 500 cakes, the cost of water and electricity will be 800. The following month, when the baker makes 300, let me just say 1,000 cakes, the cost of water and electricity will also increase with the level of production because these water and electricity, obviously, in order to increase the production, the baker would have used more water, right? And the baker would have used electricity in order to have this final product, which is a cake. So that is why we say your variable inputs, they vary with the level of production. As your production increase, the water and electricity that is being used by this baker in her production processes also increase with the level of output that is being produced. While for fixed inputs, they do not change. The baker will still pay the rate of 800 Rand regardless of the output that has been made, right? Regardless of the level of output. While for variable input, if your output increase, the baker would have to also pay more for water and electricity, which are now your variable cost. Your variable cost increase together with the level of production, of output that is being produced. You guys get that? Yeah, I hope that was clear. And then a firm will operate in two, what do you say? Okay, a firm can operate in the short run and then also in the long run, right? So in economics, when we differentiate between the short run and the long run, we do not look at the time of the calendar time. Like for instance, in accounting, to differentiate between the short run and the long run, we say that the short run is basically a period which is less than 12 months, right? Less than one financial period, while the long run is a period which is more than 12 months, right? But here in economics, to differentiate between the short run and the long run, in production and cost theory, it depends on the variability of inputs, right? On the variability of input. How flexible is the input? So for short run, we say that in the short run, it is a period in which at least one of the input is fixed and the quantities of other inputs can be varied. So in the long run, we have at least one input being fixed and the other inputs can vary, so they can change. We have one input's been fixed and the other inputs can change. Remember I said that on the, I think, second slide of this, that for this chapter, we're going to keep all the other inputs constant. We're only focusing on two of them, which is your labor and capital, right? So in the short run, they're saying that at least one of the input is fixed. That input will be what? Between the labor and capital. It will be what? It will be your capital. So in the short run, the input which is fixed, say for this chapter, because we're just focusing on labor and capital, we're looking at the quantity that has been produced as a function of labor and capital only. Remember from this, we said that the quantity is equal to a function of labor and capital, right? We're just going to look at this quantity produced being a function of what? Labor and capital only. So we only have just two inputs that we are focusing on, which is labor and capital. So in the short run, we're saying that at least one of the input is fixed. And between these two, the fixed input will be what? Will be your capital. Because the baker, in the short run, he cannot purchase more machinery. Like if he's using an oven to bake these cakes, he cannot then decide to purchase another oven in the short run, right? He can only in the short run, if the baker wants to increase production, meaning that increase the output of cakes that is being produced, he would have to hire more workers or increase the raw material which is used in the production process. But he cannot decide to purchase more machinery. Machinery is part of capital. Capital is like machinery or the equipment which is being used, right? So the short run is a period where at least one of the input is fixed and the other inputs are varied. Obviously, because we're just looking at the two inputs here, if capital is fixed in the short run, then labor is what is varied, which is why I say that here in the short run, for the baker, we're just going to use the example of the baker. For the baker to increase production, he would have to hire more workers, labor, right? Labor, workers, because only labor is varied here. he'll have to hire more workers, but he cannot decide now to purchase more capital goods, more machinery or equipment to use in order to stimulate his production. You understand? And then the long run now, it's a period where now all inputs are variable. So all inputs are variable, meaning that we do not have fixed inputs here in the long run, because even the capital can change, even the labor can change. The producer can decide to increase production by purchasing more capital goods, or by hiring more workers, or even by extending the size of the factory in the long run. Because the long run, we say that it's a period that is long enough for the business to start doing all these things, right? The inputs are now flexible. The variability of input, because remember, we say that long run and short run, it depends on the variability of inputs, right? So in the long run, the inputs now, they are what? They're variable. They can change, all of them. So the baker, my example, can decide to hire more workers in order to increase the production, and can also decide to hire more capital goods, hiring more equipment, hiring more machinery. And also he may say, no, you know what? This space is very small, right? I need to get a bigger space. And then he may decide to do what? To even expand the size of the factory in the long run, because all inputs are what? Are variable. I hope you guys are getting the different. In the long run, all inputs are variable. In the short run, at least one of the input is fixed, and then the others, they are what? They're variable. Okay, let's continue. Production in the short run. Okay, let me remove this one. Okay, production in the short run. So in analyzing production in the short run, we make the following simplifying assumption. Remember, in economics, we just deal with assumptions. Some of the things, they don't make sense. Like if you just look at them in your eye, like to say, you could say, "Hey, kanjani, kanjani." But in economics, we just deal with what? With assumptions. And then for the production, to analyze the production in the long run, we make these assumptions. We say that a firm produces only one product. All the units of given inputs are identical or homogeneous, meaning that all the inputs are the same. So if you have your laborers, they are all equally intelligent, they are all strong, and they work equally hard, right? And then we also say that input can be divided and can be used in limited quantities. Fixed production function, the price of the product and the inputs are given. The firm uses fixed inputs and one variable input, which can be your labor, right? So when analyzing the production in the short run, we make these assumptions. And then we keep everything else constant. Ceteris paribus. Production in the short run. Okay, so they say, what is production? These are the definitions that you have to know. Production, it's the physical transformation of inputs into what? Into outputs. I've already explained what production is. I just added this one here because of this intermediate. I wanted to explain what intermediate is. So, in your production, when you're producing goods and services, basically you transform your inputs, which you said that your inputs will be what? Your factors of production. Remember, so we said that we take your factors of production, we use them in the production process, and then in order to produce what? The output, right? Which is the final product. But also, you can add your factors of production and also the intermediate goods. Your intermediate goods will be those goods that you use them in your production process in order to produce other goods. So intermediate goods, they are already a final good. But when you use them in your production, now they become what? An input in your production. For example, back to the thingy, the example of a baker, right? This person is baking cakes, right? We said that. So he will need what is an intermediate good in baking? Okay, eggs. So an egg is already a final good, right? Because you can actually boil your egg and then eat it, right? But for this baker, the egg becomes an input because he will use that egg, combine it with the flour and everything in order to what? To produce the final product, which will then be what? A cake. right? So intermediate goods are those goods that you use them in order to produce another good, which is in this case of a bakery. The intermediate good will be an egg, and then the final good will be the cake. So intermediate goods are already final good, but when used in the production process, they become an input. We also have total product. Total product is the total output that is produced. This one is quite clear because total product. So it's the total output that has been produced. The products, those are the outputs, those are the goods that have been produced. And then total, so it's just the total output that has been produced. The marginal product. So the marginal product they're saying here is a change in total output resulting from the employment of one more unit of a variable factor or of a variable input. So ceteris paribus, meaning that we keep everything constant, we're just looking at the variable factors. So marginal product. So when you see marginal, just think of extra or additional. And there's a margin when there's marginal product, so it's extra product or it's additional product. Just think of extra. So what this is saying is that marginal product is the what? Is the extra product. So let's replace product with output. So it is the extra output, obviously, that has been produced, that resulted, right, from what? From the employment of what? Of an additional variable input, of an additional worker. You can also, the definition of this, you can also find it here when you just, so the thingy, what is this? The formula to calculate marginal product will be total product over what? Over the quantity of labor, right? The quantity of labor, meaning that the people that have been employed, the additional person that has been employed. So to explain this, you can just look at the what is this? The formula to calculate marginal product. It says total product divided by the quantity of labor, right? So let's try now to find the definition of marginal product by just looking at this, at the formula. So the marginal product will be what? Will be the marginal, remember I said marginal, it's the extra. So it is the extra, product that has been produced, or rather output. Yeah, I prefer output. It is the extra output that has been produced by the employment of an additional worker given by quantity of labor. So it's basically a change in your total product. This should be a change here, divided by what? A change in the quantity of labor. Let me not confuse you guys. Let me just write the changes here so that you know. But yeah, marginal product is what? Marginal tells you it's an extra. We replace product with output. So it is in the extra output that resulted from what? From the employment of what? Of the additional variable inputs. Your variable input, which is what? Which is labor. We know that really in the short run, only labor is variable. Only labor is varied. And then the other inputs are what? They're fixed. So you guys are getting that what marginal product is. So it is the extra output which has been produced. No, it is the extra output which resulted from what? From the employment of the additional worker. Is the change in total output resulting from the employment? No, I like to use extra. But you guys can also read the thingy, this, and keep this definition. I just like to use extra because it makes sense. To say marginal means extra or additional. So it is what? Is the extra output that has been produced resulting from. So this output was produced. Why? Because there was an employment of what? Of the additional variable inputs or of the additional worker. So what this basically means is that let's say that they were let me just say there were four people in this factory, and they were producing maybe like 10 cakes, right? 10 cakes. And then you added one person, and then now they are 5, right? and then now they are 5. And then now they are producing what? They're producing 12 cakes, right? To find the marginal, you say what? Okay, so let me just say this is what, this is your labor, L, and this is what, this is your total, TP. This is your total product, right? This is L, guys. This is L. L for labor. So we had 4 workers. The production was 10. And then you added another worker. Now they are 5. And then the production increased from 10 to 12, right? So to find the marginal, MP ish, MP. Now to find the marginal product, you say 12 minus 10, right? So if you say 12 minus 10, it will give you 2. The formula is says a change in total product. It's the one that I wrote here. It's the change in total products over, sorry guys if it's not neat, over change in the quantity of what? Of labor, right? So the change in total product, you say 12 minus 10, you get 2. So it's going to be 2 divided by a change in the quantity of labor. So you say 5 minus 4, you get 1. So if you say 2 divided by 1, you get what? You get 2. So the change here is 2. So you can see now that when you employed the 5th worker, right, this additional worker here, this one, because we had 4, then you added this one, then there were 5. So when you employed this worker here, the total product increased by what? By 2 units, right? By 2 units. So marginal product, it then says, it is a what? It is an extra, this 2, which is an extra output that has been produced. Why? Due to the employment of this worker, of this additional worker. You get it? Yeah. So marginal, when you see marginal, just think of extra or additional. Average product. Average product is the total product divided by labor. So this is basically the formula to calculate average product. You say total product divided by labor. Because average product, we are trying to find out now, Guti, what is the, we're trying to find out now the product per each unit of labor. We're trying to find out, Guti, what is each person, each worker, bringing basically in the production process. So you'd find, Guti, your total product, yeah, one of the tutors say that we're basically calculating the mean because your total product, sorry, you said your total product divided by what? The quantity of labor, right? So if you have your total product here, and then you have your labor. So if you have one worker and then they're producing 10 units of output, then you have 2, you employ another one, you have 2, they produce 12. How to looks like, I don't know. But yeah, this is 2 guys. And then you have producing 12, then you employ another 3rd worker, and then they producing what? They produce let me just say 19. So now average products, you're trying to find out, Tuti, what is the production per each unit of labor? What is each worker producing? So in order to find your average product, you say 10 divided by 1. Obviously, because there's only one person, your answer will be 10, meaning that this person, one person produces what? 10 output, right? Produces 10 units. And if there are 2, you basically say 12 divided by 2, you would get 6, right? Meaning that there are 2 people, each one of them produces 6 units and the others produce 6 units. In total, we had 12 units, right? That is the average product. And now if you have 19, you also say 19 divided by, 3. I need to get my calculator for that. You get 6,3, meaning that each worker in order to produce this total product of 19, each worker contributed what 6,3 what each worker produced 6,3 products, right? Yeah, I hope you guys are getting the average. So you say total product divided by what's the quantity of labor. Then we move on. So the law of diminishing return. So the law of diminishing return states that as more of variable input is combined with one or more fixed inputs in the production process, points will eventually be reached where first the marginal product, then the average product produced, and finally the total product starts to decline. So what the law of diminishing return basically states is that let's just look here. So it states that, you see, these are our fixed cost. Remember our fixed cost, we said that fixed cost of fixed inputs, we said they do not change, right? So here they're using land. It's 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. It doesn't change regardless of the level of output that is being produced. Can you see the total product is increasing from 0, 16, 44, and so on. But your fixed cost, they just remain at 20, right? And the unit of labor, these are your what? Those are your variable inputs. They change. So what the law of diminishing marginal return it states basically is that as you increase your variable inputs and you combine your variable inputs with your what? With your fixed inputs in the production process. Obviously, Velepela, you have to combine your variable inputs with your fixed inputs in order to, because these are both the inputs which are needed in the production process in order to produce the final product, right? So as you are increasing your variable inputs and you're combining them with your fixed inputs, your total product, your marginal product, and your average product will increase until they reach a certain point where now they will then decrease, right? So firstly, the marginal products will decline. And then, as you can see here, you can just look here or here. Firstly, you see the marginal products will decline first, and then the average product will also decline, and then the total product will also start to do what? To decrease here, to decline. So as you adding more and more and more variable inputs into the production process and combining it with your fixed inputs, your total products will start to decline, and then your marginal product and also your average product. You can see here we had one worker, one labor, and then 20 units of land. Sorry, 20, so the cost of land is basically 20. And then you can see that the total product, the units which has been produced by this worker is 16, right? We employ another worker, the total product is what? Is 44. We employ another worker, combine it with the fixed inputs, the total product is 78. Employ another worker, they are now 4. Combine it with the fixed inputs, the total product is 113, and so on. You can see that the total product is increasing until it gets to this point. Then now you employ another worker, there are 8, combine it with your fixed inputs, then here the total product is just constant, and then it starts to decrease here when you're employing what? The 10th worker, right? And you can also see that your marginal product, again, what is happening to your marginal, the additional unit that you're getting from what? From employing the what? The additional worker. What is happening here to marginal? You can see that, you know, that your marginal, we get it by saying that a change in total product over a change in quantity, right? Quantity of labor. And you can see that your labor here, the change is just 1, because if you say 1 minus 0, it's 1, 2 minus 1, it's 1, which is why we just say 16 minus 0 to get this. So our marginal product is 16, 28, 34. It's increasing. Then when after the fourth worker, you employ the 5th one, and then your marginal product then what? Starts to decrease. You can see your total product is still increasing, guys. It's 130 and 13, 145. But the marginal, which is the extra units that is being brought in by this person that we've employed, is actually decreasing. You can see from 32, 26, 19, 10 until it reaches 0 and then start to be negative. Your marginal product then start to be what? To be negative. Also with the average product, meaning that the product that is being produced per unit of labor, it starts to be 16, it's 22, it starts by increasing, and then it reaches a certain point where it's at its maximum, then it starts to do what? To also increase, meaning that even the production that is being produced by each worker is starting to do what? To increase here at this point. To decrease at this point. You can see it's decreasing. So this is explained, this increase and decrease is explained by what? The law of diminishing return, which states that as your variable input is being combined with the fixed input together in the production process, your marginal product will start to do what? To decrease. You can see that the marginal starts to decrease first, and then follows by what? Followed by the average products, because average products will start to decrease here. Average products also start to decline, and also your total products will start what? It will start to decline. So the law of diminishing return, it basically states that as you're increasing your variable input, the total products, as you're increasing your variable input and using it in the production process, you will reach these points where your marginal product, your average product, and then the total product starts to do what? To decrease. So you must be very much aware of the shape of each marginal product, average product, and total product. You can see that the curve for marginal product, it is a U shape, but it's downward, like it's upside down. And your average product is like that. It's like a curve. You can say that average product is a U shape and marginal product is like a tick. It's like a tick, but which is upside down as well. And then your total product, they would always start at 0, guys. Your total product will always start at 0. Like that. And then, yeah. So basically here they were just explaining to us the law of diminishing marginal return, which basically state that as you add your variable input to your fixed inputs in order to stimulate your production in the production process, your marginal products, average product and total product will increase until they reach a certain point where now they'll start to do what? To decline. So how does the firm know when to stop hiring more workers? To solve this problem, the concepts of average product and marginal product are used. So to solve the problem of when will the firm stop hiring, we use the concept of what? Average product and marginal product. So what is average product? They say that average product is the output per worker. Yes, it's the output per worker. What each worker is actually contributing, what each worker is actually producing. And you get it by saying total product divided by input hired, which is basically the quantity of labor. Average product will be maximized where AP equals to MP. So average product will be at maximum where the average product, the output per worker is equal to the extra marginal product. Remember AM marginal for what? For additional or extra. So where the extra output that is being produced by employing the additional worker is equal to what? To the output per worker. Then your average product is what? Is maximized. Where AP is equal to MP. I'm just going to look at something here. So it will be maximized here. The marginal product. Where MP is equal to AP. Okay. And in the relationship between AP and MP, remember they say that the relationship between average product and marginal product will tell us, Guti, when to stop hiring. To tell us when the firm should stop hiring. The relationship of AP and MP. So this question might come out And they might say, discuss the relationship between AP and NP, or they'll say, what is the difference between AP and NP? I got this information from our tutor. This question might come out in that way, where they say, what is the difference between AP and NP, or what is the relationship between AP and NP? And you basically have to provide this information here, right? So in order to be able to provide this information here, you have to be able to draw this, right? So you can actually draw this there in the corner of your paper, and then you can just analyze what is going on here, and then you just write that, then you get your marks. Because what this is saying, basically, it is what is happening here. So the relationship between average product and marginal product is that you see here, as your marginal product is increasing, when your marginal product is increasing, average product lies below marginal product. Can you see? And then marginal product reaches maximum here. Okay, let me just use this. The marginal product will reach its maximum here first before average product. Can you see? And then after marginal product has reached its maximum, marginal product starts to decrease. And when marginal product is decreasing, average product is above marginal product. You can see that it's decreasing here, and your average product is above now. And then marginal product and average product, they intersect here, where AP, my average product, is at its maximum. You can see that here at this point, AP is at its maximum, and then marginal product, they're intersecting. Remember what we said with this point, where we said MP and AP will be at maximum, where average products will be maximized, where MP and AP are equal. So they're equal here. So yeah, and then where they intersect, basically, and AP reaches its maximum, AP will then be above marginal product, and marginal product will be decreasing. That is why I'm saying it's very important to understand the shape of the graphs. Just know that your MP is like this, and your AP is like this. And then to answer this question, you just come here, you just say what is happening basically here. Then you write it down, then you get your 4 marks. So here they're repeating the same thing I said. They say MP reaches its maximum before AP. You can see that marginal product is here. It reaches its maximum here before AP, right? Before AP reaches a maximum, marginal product lies above AP. So before average product, this one reaches its maximum, marginal product is above average product. You can see from here, average product is below marginal product before average product reaches its maximum. And then marginal product equals average product at a maximum point of average product. So at the maximum point of average product, where average product is at its maximum, your marginal product is equal to your average product. It's where they intersect. And then they're also equal. And it's also a maximum of average product. And then after the maximum point of average product is reached, so after the point where the maximum point of average product, where MP is equal to AP, is reached, MP lies below AP. So MP will then lie below AP. As you can see, AP is above MP. So that is their relationship. Yeah. And where they intersect, where they meet, AP is at its maximum, and AP and MP are equal. And AP is maximized where marginal products intersect with average products, where they're equal. Okay, let's continue. So now we look at increasing marginal returns and decreasing marginal returns. Right. Remember, the law of diminishing return is not the same as increasing marginal return and diminishing marginal return. This law here, this one, the law of diminishing return, is not the same with the diminishing marginal return and increasing marginal return. It's not the same with the law of diminishing return. This law, it basically states this, what it is saying here. that that as you are increasing your variable inputs and you're combining them with your fixed inputs in the production process, your marginal products will increase until it reaches a certain point where it will start to decline. Your average products will increase until it reaches a certain point where it starts to decline. Also, your total products will increase until it reaches a certain point where it starts to decline. That is what this law of diminishing return is basically saying. Right. And then your, why is this not moving? And then your increasing marginal return. So the increasing marginal return, they're saying here, it occurs when the marginal product of an additional worker exceeds the marginal product of the previous worker. Right, so let's look at marginal. So this thing, it says increasing marginal return. So obviously you should look at what? Your marginal product, guys. You can't be coming and comparing the total product. It's saying increasing marginal return. So you focus on what? On the marginal product. Yeah, even the definition saying that it occurs when marginal products, right? The marginal product of the additional worker exceeds the marginal product of the what? Of the previous worker, increasing marginal return. And the diminishing marginal return, it will occur where? When your marginal product of the additional worker is less than the marginal product of the previous worker. So let's start with the increasing marginal return. So let's say that you employ an additional, let me just look here. So you see here, we had one worker was producing 16 units, right? And the marginal product is obviously 16 because it's just one person. So yeah. And then you employ another person, now there are two. The total product is 44. And then the marginal, what this other person is bringing in is what? 28 units, right? So by the employment of this additional worker, we're able to get what? 28 plus in what's in 28 plus in our output. So it's 16 plus 28. This 28 it came along because of the employment of the what? Of the additional worker. And then so on. You employ another worker, we are now 3, and then the additional is 34, meaning that this extra units we achieved it. Why? Because of the employment of this worker, the third worker, right? And so on. It's increasing. So you can see that when we're employing the first worker, the marginal is 16, the second worker, the marginal is 28, the third worker, the marginal is 34, meaning that by employing these people, it's actually benefiting the business because the output is actually, it's increasing at an increasing rate. The total product here is increasing, but also at an increasing rate because even what these workers are bringing in is an increase in the production, right? You can see that. So increasing marginal return, it basically means it is when the marginal product of the additional workers, we had 16 workers, we employed we had 16 outputs, total product, we employed another worker, we had 44. And then the marginal of the second worker is what? Is 28, which is greater than that of the previous worker, which was 16, meaning that by actually adding this worker, it is benefiting the business because the product is increasing by 28 units, right? So from here, this is where we experience what? Increasing marginal return, because the marginal product of the additional worker, of this worker here, which we employ, is exceeding the marginal product of the previous worker. The previous worker had 16 products. We employed the second worker had 28. So it is increasing because it is exceeding the marginal product of the previous worker. And so on. We employ a third worker. The third worker's the extra units of the extra output we got from employing the third worker was what? 34 units of output, right? Which is greater than that of the previous worker, meaning that the business is still doing well, so we can still hire more people. because we can see that the marginal, the extra output is what is increasing. We hire another person here, the fourth worker now. This fourth worker does what? Also, by employing her, you can see that the marginal product has also increased from 34 to 35, right? So our total products are increasing at an increasing rate because even the extra output that we're getting from employing this extra worker is increasing, right? This additional worker is increasing. So we say, okay, we can still employ more people then because our marginal product is also increasing. Because our marginal product is also increasing, right? So you employ another person from 4 to 5. Now you employ another worker. We have 5 workers, right? They're employing now I can't see. So the 5th worker is produced. Okay, the total product is 145 when you employ the 5th worker. You can see that your total product keeps on increasing from 0 to 1644. Now you have 5 workers. Your total product has increased from 113 to what? To 145. But the additional product is doing what? It is now decreasing. Can you see? Because the previous worker, by employing the previous worker, we're able to get an extra output of what? Units of output, which were 35 units. 35 units of output we're able to get from employing the previous worker, the 4th worker. So when we employed the 5th one, we thought we're also going to increase our marginal product, but rather our marginal products are what? Are decreasing from 35 to 32. Do you think at this point we should continue hiring more labor? Okay, so here they continued. They hired another worker from 5 to 6 workers. Your total product increased from 145 to 171. But the marginal product, the additional, the extra units that were produced by this person, by the employment of this person, they actually decreased from 32 to 26. Can you see? So, and so on. They employ another person. There were 7 workers now. Our total product kept on increasing from 171 to 190. But look at our marginal product. The extra output that we got from employing this person, the 7th, I think it's 7, right? Person, it is what? It's only 19. So from 26 to 19, it is decreasing. So your marginal product will keep on decreasing as you are employing more workers, as your variable inputs keep on what? Increasing until it reaches 0. When your marginal product is at 0, your total product is at its maximum. You can see, because after that, it will start to decrease as well. So from here, we saw that at the beginning, we experience increasing marginal return because as you're employing more workers, the marginal products, so the extra units of which you get for that additional worker is greater than the marginal product of the previous worker, right? You can see that this worker produced 16, you added another worker, this worker produced 28, and so on. So here we're experiencing increasing marginal return, whereby now the product of the additional worker is greater than the marginal product of the previous worker. And then when we get here, when we employ the 4th, I think it's 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, the 5th. Kozlo. Yeah, number 4. When we employ the 4th worker, you can see that here, you can see that now your marginal product is at its maximum, right? When you're employing is it the 4th worker? It's 4. Yeah, the marginal product is at its maximum here at 35. Then if you continue to add another worker from 4 to 5 workers, your marginal product starts to do what? To decrease. The extra output that you are getting from employing this worker starts to decrease. And then so here, now you're experiencing what? Diminishing marginal return. Diminishing marginal return, it basically says it occurs when the marginal product of the additional worker right? So this is the additional worker, this is the fifth worker, and the marginal product is 32. So the marginal product of the additional worker is what? Is less than, so you can see 32 is less than the marginal product of the previous worker. So 32 is less than 35. So here we start to experience what? Diminishing marginal return. This is where your graph would look like this. So at this point where you're experiencing increasing marginal return, your graph will be like this until it gets to this point, which is 35. Because you can see that your marginal product is that it's at its maximum here. It's 35. So until you reach 35, and then after that, you start to experience what? Diminishing marginal return. Because now your marginal product, it does what? Hi guys, this is MP. Your marginal product does what? It decreases. And then you have this. It will decrease until it reach what? Zero here. It reaches zero here and then goes to negative. Right. Yeah, so that is what you have. So guys, increasing marginal return basically means you would see the output of the additional work, it exceeds the marginal product of the additional worker exceeds the marginal product of the previous worker. And then diminishing, it's basically where now the marginal product of the additional work is less than the marginal product of the what? Of the marginal product of the additional worker is less than the marginal product of the previous worker. So now you're experiencing what? Diminishing marginal return. Okay, let's continue. Where was I? Okay, so here, the relationship between total product and what? And the marginal product. So we analyze the relationship between average product and marginal product. Now we're analyzing the relationship between total product and marginal product. Okay, so now we're trying to analyze the relationship between, it's taking me back. Okay. Okay, so now we are trying to analyze the relationship between, I'm sorry guys about that. I was just trying to charge my laptop. So now we're trying to analyze the relationship between total product and marginal product. So also here to be able to, if you're asked a question to say, what is the relationship between total product and marginal product, or what is the difference between total product or marginal product, you just have to be able to draw this, right? So it's very important to know how this curve look like, the curve of total product is like, the curve of marginal product is like, so that you can be able to tackle such questions. So here, so here they're asked to what's the relationship between total product and marginal product. So you can see here that let me just go here first before even coming here. Let's just come here. So the relationship between the total product and the marginal product, right? That is the relationship that they want. Let's just look at this because there are figures here. Can you see that first thing is that your total product is increasing, right? But at what? It's an increasing rate here at the beginning because you have 0, then the total product increase from 0 to 16, then the total product increase from 16 to 44, then the total product increase from 44 to 75, and so on, right? And also the extra units, right, is also what? Is also increasing, right? The marginal product is also increasing. The extra units of employing the additional worker is also what? Is also increasing from 16 to 28 to 36 to 30, to 34 to 35, right? So the total product is increasing at a what? At an increasing rate. We will go there to explain this, but I just want to explain it here first. So your total product is, I say your total product will always start at 0, remember from the previous slide. So you'd have something like this. So here it's increasing at a what? At an increasing rate, where your marginal product is also what? Is also increasing. So let me draw marginal products, which is increasing. Your marginal product is also what? Is also increasing. So where your marginal product is also increasing, your total product is increasing at an increasing rate. Then your marginal product reaches the maximum point. I just want to clear something out so I can show the maximum here. Okay. So it's increasing, then it reaches a maximum. Yo. So let me just see. Okay, so I'm just trying to be neat. Okay, so I said this was your total product, right? Your total product is increasing, right? It's increasing when also your marginal product is increasing, right? From 16, 28, and so on. So your marginal product will also increase. Let me just draw it here. And then it reaches a maximum. So that is the maximum. Yeah, that is the maximum. It reaches the maximum point of wait, 35. Right. And then after that, you notice that your total product will start to increase, but at a decreasing rate. Right. That is where now your total product will be what? Will be steeper. Will be going like this. This diagram. Yeah, your total product will start to be steeper because now your total product is increasing at a what? At a decreasing rate. Then after the maximum point here for your marginal product, it starts to decrease. So from the maximum here, then it starts to do what? To decrease. Right? Obviously until it reaches 0, until it's meet here with your the y-axis, and then it gets to a negative something. And then what happens here to your marginal product, sorry, to your total product when your marginal product reaches 0? Your total product will be what? At maximum. So at this point here, let me just try to use another color. Okay, I pressed the wrong button. So here, where your marginal product is 0, here, your total product should be what? Should be at its maximum. So it will continue to increase until this point, and then it will start to decrease. Hey guys, hey, my drawing shame. But you see this on the following slide. What I was trying to show you guys here is the relationship using the numbers. Let me just go to that slide, because this is already a mess. Okay, so here we are. I was saying that here you can see that your marginal, well, it's not always the case that marginal products will start at 0. Is it? Yeah, it's not always the case that your marginal products will start at 0. You just have to be careful, because here they're starting from 0, and it's not always like that. So you see that, but you just have to know the shape. You just have to know the shape to be able to interpret. So if they're asking this, you just go there on the corner of your paper, you just write this graph, and then you just interpret it and you write this down. This is what I'm going to be explaining basically. So you can see that here at the beginning, your total product is like an S shape. Your total product starts here, it starts to increase at an increasing rate. Why? Because also your marginal product is also increasing, right? So it increases at an increasing rate until your marginal product reaches its maximum here, right? Then when the marginal product reaches its maximum, your total product will then be steeper, right? And this is where your total product is now increasing at a decreasing rate, right? This is where we said, Guti, your diminishing marginal return to scale will start, right? Your total product will keep on increasing at a decreasing rate until it reaches its maximum. It will reach its maximum where the marginal product has decreased also until it reaches 0, right? So when the marginal product is equal to 0, your total product will be at its maximum, right? That is the relationship between the total product and the marginal product. So they've also added average product here to show that also average products will start to increase, to show basically the law of diminishing here, the law of diminishing return. No marginal for this one, it's just the law of diminishing return, which basically state that as the variable inputs are being combined together with your fixed inputs, remember, in the production process, your marginal products will increase and then decrease, start to decline first, and then your average products will decline, and then your total products will increase and then decline as well. That is the law of diminishing marginal return. And the relationship between total products and marginal products is that your total products will start to increase as your marginal product is increasing. Then your marginal product will reach its maximum. When marginal product reaches its maximum, your total product starts to increase at a decreasing rate because your marginal product will then decrease at that point. Right? The extra output that is being produced by employing of the additional worker is decreasing. So obviously, as much as your total products will be increasing, but they'll be increasing at a decreasing rate. Understand? So yeah. And then your marginal product continues to decrease until it reaches 0. Where now, when your marginal product is 0, your total product will be at its maximum. Yeah, I'll read you guys again this one. And then have the long run production. So these are the returns to scale. And the return to scale, they're basically showing us the relationship between inputs and outputs. The return to scale will be showing us what the relationship between inputs and outputs. And there are 3 possible situations of return to scale. We have increasing return to scale, constant return to scale, and diminishing return to scale. So the increasing return, this one is basically, I think it's easy. Increasing return. It basically means that, I did say that here we're basically looking at the relationship between the inputs and the outputs, right? So for increasing return, it basically means that the percentage increase in the input will lead to a percentage increase in the output. So if the inputs increase, the outputs will also increase by the greater percentage, right? That is the increasing return. It's increasing, guys, increasing. And the relationship is between inputs and output. So obviously, if your inputs are increasing and it's increasing return, therefore, the return also, which is the output, should also be what? Should also be increasing. So in the increasing returns to scale, the inputs are increasing, the increase in the output, the outputs will increase by a greater, the outputs will increase by a greater percentage when input increases. Yes. So here your inputs will increase and your outputs will increase by a greater percentage. Then the constant return to scale, it's where now your outputs will increase by the same percentage as your inputs. I remember the lecturer use proportionate. The increase in the inputs will be proportionate to the increase in the outputs, meaning that there will be the same increase. So if the output increased by 50%, the output will increase by 50%. And then diminishing marginal return. Also here, it's where now an increase in the input will give a smaller increase in the output or a decrease in the output. So this one, the inputs increase by a greater percentage and the output increase by a small percentage or rather decrease, right? Those are the ones that return to scale. Learning outcomes 2. I think I've already exhausted my time. I'm going to have to do another video for this one. Because it's going to... I'm going to have to do another video. Let me just... Yes, guys, so please be on the lookout for another video where I'll be finishing up the slides, because My time is already up. It's almost up. Thank you guys for watching these videos. I hope you find them helpful. If you have your question, please don't be scared to ask them on the comment section. And also, yeah, on our group on WhatsApp, you can also ask the questions if you have them. There are so many people there that are willing to help you guys. You are not alone, and good luck on your preparation for the test. Okay, this always happens when I have to close this thing.